T.O., I reached out on Twitter and I put together a bunch of questions that people are going to answer. And I want to start before we get into the questions that those people asked. I'm going to ask you guys a question. I put together a list of the top 10 coaches in college basketball today. Okay. I sent it to you guys earlier. I know that you guys probably didn't look at it because no one pays attention to anything that I say when I put together rundowns, but it's all good. I still love you guys anyway. I'm going to roll through my top 10 and I want you guys to tell me what's right, what's wrong, where I'm dumb, where you disagree, and if there's anybody that I miss. Because there's a couple names in here that I'm thinking about that it was like really hard not to have them in here. One of them won a national championship within the last 5 years. So here's my list. Number 1, Dan Hurley. Number 2, Bill Self. I initially had 2 over 1, Self over Hurley. I think you can go either direction on those two. I would probably lean the guy that won the back-to-back titles. I'm kind of biased. I'm trying not to be biased in that, but that's where I ended up. 3, Mark Few. 4, Scott Drew. 5, Kelvin Sampson. I could be talked into any order for 3 to 5. 6, Nate Oates. 7, Matt Painter. 8, Bruce Pearl. I think all 3 of those are kind of in the same tier. And then I ended with Rick Pitino and Tom Izzo. Go ahead, T.O. Rip me a new one, man. What's wrong with it? What's right with it? Where am I crazy?
Look, this is a no-win situation because they're all great. I think, other guys you could consider. I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now. You basically put all the old heads in there with Dan Hurley, the guys who have been around the longest.
And have had the most, like Mark Few built Gonzaga into a power and has been to 9 straight Sweet 16. Scott Drew won a national title at Baylor. 3 years ago.
A lot of money at Baylor now.
Yeah. Houston has been one of the best programs in college basketball under Kelvin Sampson for like the last 7 years. Who saw that coming? Right. So
that 8, 9, 10, I think Pitino is too low.
Too low.
I think Pearl and Izzo. This makes me. There's just a lot of guys you could interchange. Now, if you'd asked me 10 years ago with Izzo, I would be like, he's too low. But I don't. He might be too high. Izzo's like he's kind of a conundrum to me because I understand how great he is, and I understand they're always going to hang around. And I don't know. Once you get to that 9-10, there's just a lot of other people you could kind of throw into that mix. It really is kind of a tough one to even think about. And what's your barometer for current best head coach, national championships, wins, guys who does the most with the list, most with the least? I mean, what about academic school coaches?
Mine is like ranking them as of today in term for bringing in talent, success, like a little bit of what have you done in recent seasons kind of a thing. Just for clarification purposes, I had Rick Pitino at 9 simply because he was gone, left in 2017, was in Greece for a while, has made it to a tournament at Iona, which is okay.
Sure, it's fair.
Should be at the tournament every year. Didn't make the tournament last season. So I get it. But
I could say this. Nobody on that list wants to play Micah Shrewsbury. He's a hell of a coach, but he's not as accomplished, but he's a hell of a coach.
But he's nobody not a head coach in college basketball.
No, but you get what I'm saying. What's the barometer here?
Right.
That's my only thing. What about Kyle Smith, who's been a great coach, but he's been at Washington State and he's been at Princeton.
Right. What about Randy Bennett?
Yeah, throw him in there. He's terrific.
What about Greg McDermott, who's been to 3 of the last 4 Sweet 16s?
Who's terrific.
So McDermott and Tony Bennett were the 2 hardest ones for me to kind of put together. Tony Bennett's won a national title and did a whole bunch of great stuff from 2014 to 2019 at Virginia. And then it's kind of, the transfer era, it's kind of fallen off a little bit.
Well, I'm going to argue for somebody here. I'm going to argue for somebody that's got to be considered on the list. All right. And I have a rant about this. So I'm going to put my hat on here for a moment.
Hold on.
To me, the most disrespected coach in college basketball is the head coach at Southern California right now. Eric Musselman is getting buried relevance-wise for one awful year. Mm-hmm. He had one really poor year. If you asked us all a year ago, he's on this top 10 list. You know why? Mm-hmm. Up until he got there, Arkansas basketball had not been relevant since I was a baby, since the mid to late 90s. Okay? he made them go. He took them to multiple Elite Eights. He took them to 3 Sweet 16s and 2 Elite Eights. That guy had them rolling. Arkansas was one of the best programs in the country. I would argue that up until last year, he had done as good of a coaching job and building job. I know he's hard to work for. All right. I know there's young coaches out there who listen to our show and say, yeah, but I've heard horror stories.
Yeah.
Horror stories be damned. He's hard to work for. You know who else is hard to work for? Dan Hurley's not easy to work for.
He's not.
You think that the top of the coaching chain is easy to work for? They're trying to win effing games. So, with all due respect to the list, which I the only other thing I object to is I can't put Mark Few over Scott Drew. I know Few's been extremely consistent, but Scott Drew has the title.
Mm-hmm.
He climbed the mountain, and titles matter to me. But Eric Musselman is disrespected here. Again, watch him win at USC. Like, underrated thing in the Big Ten. Underrated thing in the Big Ten heading into this year. And this podcast has been called out for not liking the Big Ten. But I have a hot take. My hot take is this. This is hot. The Big Ten's national title drought, whenever it ends someday, it will end with an expansion member winning the title. How about that for a hot take? So I'm betting on one of UCLA, USC, Oregon, or Washington. I'll put $50. I just need one of them to have a dream run. UCLA's already done it.
Look, I don't hate the hot take, but I am.
What about Otzelberger? What about Otzelberger? What he's done there? If you had to pick today between Izzo and Otzelberger, who are you picking?
Well, we're on the Big Ten right now for a moment, but yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Way to completely change the subject.
I don't care.
Look, I was just going to say,
it's a Big Ten.
As a resident of the state of New Jersey, are we saying that Rutgers wasn't an expansion member in the Big Ten? Like, are we saying that Rutgers can't
Maryland?
Are we saying that Maryland can't win a national title? Is that what
you're saying? This helps my cause. This helps, my betting cause.
Kevin Willard, national champion. That has a nice ring to it.
Oh, my God. I want to go to that party.
No, you don't.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
As long as there's a photo booth, I'm in.
That's an Easter egg if I've ever heard one.
All right. We got a couple more questions from fans.
We're not going Brad Underwood. Brad Underwood can't
all right. That's a perfect segue.
Close.
He's in the mix. To me,
there's just so many good coaches.
Yes. Just for the record.
It depends on what your barometer is.
Yes.
That's my big thing.
For me, it was Tony Bennett and Greg McDermott were the two toughest ones to keep off of there, and then Musselman would be the next.
But okay, so why did you keep Tony Bennett off?
Why? Because he's
tough.
It's the thing is for today, and I just don't think in
Izzo,
the era of the portal, Tony Bennett works as well.
Izzo,
and look, I get the argument. I get the argument. There's nothing for me to push back on. It's Tom. I think Izzo's built a little bit more for this era than Tony Bennett is, but we'll see this year, right?
Like, I'm going to get a text from Shear if he listens to this one.